Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to make beaded flat mesh flowers. These are going to be cool little sculptural components that I'm going to teach you how to sculpt with the flat mesh silver silk jewelry chain into these fantastic little components. So we're going to assemble all these little components together into an asymmetrical design. This is one of my favorite styles of jewelry making. It's so challenging and fun and interesting, and you can really put your own stamp on it. If you are looking for the exact materials of what I'm using for this tutorial, you can check out the video description and find all of the information and supplies there. You'll also find a really great tidbit for making the tassel that I'm going to include in today's project. I'm not going to go through it step by step in our tutorial necessarily, but if you are looking for more information on how to construct it, it is in the description. Welcome to my channel. My name is Nilay Patel. I'm the owner, designer, and educator at Silver Silk and More, bringing you guys fun, fantastic project ideas, inspiration, and everything with Silver Silk that I possibly can. If you are on YouTube and you are wanting to get more out of Silver Silk, you can subscribe to my channel. Destroy that subscribe button, in fact. And you can also follow my Instagram. I have a ton of inspirational ideas and picture posts and reels on there that you guys need to really follow and check out. Fantastic stuff on there. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get into today's project. All right, I have a few tools at my table. You're probably familiar with some of these tools already, and if you're not, I'm going to quickly go through them one by one. To my left here, this is a pair of chain nose pliers. They are tapered at the end and very flat and are great for grasping components, and we'll be making lots of wire wrap loops for this project, and these are going to be very handy for that. So I recommend having a great pair. Mine are actually from Weber's. And talking about Weber's, I've also got my handy dandy round nose pliers as well. And these taper, but they're round all the way around. These little nose points here, as I like to call them. And these are really, again, just a great pair of pliers to have. If we are doing a lot of simple loops and or wire wrap loops, this is going to be the pair to have as your best friend. I've also got my favorite pair of cutters. These are Lindstrom cutters that I use for craft wire, beading wire, knitted wire, just any kind of wire really. I don't use these for memory wire because memory wire is quite special and very difficult when using the wrong pliers to cut. So I kind of have a special pair out just for that. But for any other craft wire or softer wires, this is going to be the perfect pair to go with. So my materials is a little bit different just because it's very open-ended. So what I thought I would start with first is actually how to make those little floral components, these little beaded flowers with the knitted wire. Isn't that just beautiful? You can make one of these for a pendant, or you can make multiple to really make a statement design. So there's really no right or wrong way to go about this, just learning the component and how to manipulate the knitting wire, the knitted wire to get it to sculpt the way that you want to. So I thought I would show you this component and then I would cover the rest of the materials as I'm attaching all of these things together for you guys. So to make the beaded component, the beaded flower here, you really just need a few things. First is a decorative bead or a glass bead that's about 15 millimeters in diameter. This can really be any shape or size, I think, to make this work. I prefer the round if I'm really trying to make it just a nice wrapped, sort of covered bead with all the knitted wire. I think it's quite a standout just to keep it plain. It makes the knitted wire stand out at least. And then I sort of just added a little decorative element down here, and that would be a little Bicone crystal that's about 6 millimeters. And then you need about a 6 millimeter bead cap to complement this. About 6 or 8 is really a good size. Since I'm in the flower theme here, I picked out some bead caps that have little leaves on it as its motif. And it's also in the antique brass or antique gold color, as is my craft wire. And my craft wire is a 20 gauge craft wire from Softflex Company. Comes on a spool that looks like this. So this is 10 yards of the 20 gauge in the vintage bronze, and it matches perfectly with my color scheme for today. So I just cut about 7 to 8 inches of this, but ideally I would recommend working off of a larger amount just so that you're really preserving and using all the wire that you can and not having to waste any. In the description, I recommended about 3 feet of 20 gauge wire, and you would be working off of that full off of that full 3-foot amount. For the purpose of this demonstration, I just cut it short so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right. With my round nose pliers and my chain nose pliers handy, I'm going to have those two to work with. With my chain nose pliers first, I'm going to grasp that wire, and I want to make sure that it is straight. So if you need a pair of nylon jaw pliers to pull your wire and to get it nice and straight, I'd recommend doing that before making your wire wrap loops. In this case, my wire seems to be pretty straight as it is, so I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to bend it in a 90-degree angle just like this. And then I can pick it up with my round nose pliers. And I'm going to insert it to where that wire sticks right up from where I'm at, where that 90-degree angle bend is. Now, the thing to pay attention to here is that the further you go down into your pliers, the bigger that loop becomes. So you really want to designate a spot on your pliers where you feel that the loops are really good for you. I actually really like petite loops that are just sort of nice and small, and they seem to just disappear into the design. Especially when you're working with jewelry chain, which we are in this project later on. I'll be showing you the type of jewelry chain that I'm using. The petite loops, again, just tend to disappear, and I think that that's a fantastic quality about technique-driven projects, which I think this one really is. So I'm found a happy space between my plier here, and this is about 1/4 of the ways in. And I'm just going to wrap my wire around that first mandrel there. You could see that I stopped whenever I knew that it was going to hit the bottom part of my mandrel there. So it really just looks like this. And I'm going to actually position my wire a little differently now. I put it above so I can finish out my loop, just like that. And I want to get my wire back into that 90-degree position, having it wrapped around that mandrel. So this looks really good. If you need to make a couple adjustments to get that loop nice and centered, you can, but I think that that worked out really well. At this point, you can hop back in with your chain nose pliers, and you want to grasp that loop to the fullest, just like that. And then you can take either your hand, or in this case, I'm going to be using the other pliers, to wrap that shorter piece around the base or the stem of your simple loop. When you start this off, you want to make sure you have enough wire to work with and to where it feels comfortable. So I had, quite a bit of wire here to work with, so it made that loop pretty successful. The other part is that you want to make sure that your craft wire is pretty soft. The harder the craft wire, the more difficult it is to get that shape and that loop created. Running your wire through nylon jaw pliers will work harden it, but if you already have a very soft craft wire to work with, it's going to actually just make the project better and more secure. So that's why I highly recommend checking out the wire that I have listed in the description as part of your bead inventory. All right, so I trimmed that little piece of wire off, and I'm just going to go through with my chain nose pliers and make sure that nothing is poking or sticking out from that coil. So you can kind of just press it in and really just mold and fold it in. And that should be a perfect little wire wrap loop. So at this point, I can string on my beads. So I'm actually going to straighten this up here just to make sure that I can slide that bead right on. So according to my template here, I've got my crystal at the bottom followed by my larger bead. Okay, and then I have all of my fun knitted wire petals at the top there. So I'm going to now start that process. This is what Silver Silk flat mesh jewelry chain looks like. If you are not familiar with what this product is, it's a knitted wire jewelry chain that uses 6 needles and a second apparatus that flattens this mesh once it comes out of the machine into a really delicate, flat 5 millimeter in width chain. And it's flexible, but pretty strong. It's good, strong stuff and really fun to work with, and currently comes in 15 different colors. So this one is the antique white that I decided to use against the gray, just because it'll pop out quite a bit and really give that flower sophisticated look and style that I'm wanting to go for. So my wire's a little bit tallish here. And of course, if you're working off of a full spool, you'll probably want to cut it down. But you can actually get away with cutting about maybe about 2.5, 3 inches just above your last bead, and you'll waste hardly anything at all. So, and that'll make the this second process quite easy as well. So at this point, you could definitely trim it down. Okay, to start this off, and one of my favorite attributes about this wire is that the open knits allow for materials to be strung through. So in this case, I'm going to string through my 20 gauge wire. I'm going to string through the knitted wire with the 20 gauge wire. And I've just gone maybe a couple knits below where the edge is. When you do cut this knitted wire, sometimes there's little wire remnants that tend to pop out. I call these wire fuzzies. You'll want to remove all of those before. Let me see if I can kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. So yeah, whenever I've trimmed this wire, there's like little pieces here that need to just kind of be removed, as you can see there. So by removing those, it just makes the end really nice and tidy and easy to work with. So I really recommend going through and doing that each time that you cut the knitted wire. So I've went ahead and strung it right through. What I'm going to do is work in a counterclockwise motion here. I'm going to loop my knitted wire around, and you want to loop it to the size of the petal that you want it to be. So in this case, this is just under an inch in its total length here. So you can kind of mark it with your thumb and then just go in with your wire and simply string right through it. Okay, so I'll do that again. You'll see that my wire just flips right around, and you just want to let it kind of do its own thing at this point, as long as you maintain the same consistent way of stringing that knitted wire onto your piece of craft wire, then you're in really good shape. So here again, go right through. You can kind of scooch this down if it's going to be easier on you. Okay, and it looks like right there. You could even taper this as it kind of, as you kind of use up and add more petals to it. And I think that's sort of a thing in nature, as well as, you know, the idea that petals tend to kind of become smaller once they're kind of out of the flower. So you can imagine it that way if you want to as well. And you'll see that a beautiful petal necklace component here is starting to form, or beaded components. Let me just see. I think I've got a little boo-boo. There we go. Okay. Had it twisted up there, but you want to make sure that it doesn't twist and that it's all laying nice and flat, which it is there. And not all my loops are even, as you can see, but I think that adds to the beauty of this piece. So at the end here, I've got a little bit of wire that I have sticking out. Of course, you'll be working off of the full 5-foot spool more than likely, which is how the flat mesh is sold. And so what you can do is just kind of trim off as you need to so you're not wasting any. But in this case, I'm just going to trim off to where I've got about 3 or so millimeters left of that knitted wire. Some of that will turn into wire fuzzies, and so all you do is just shake those right out. And or you can take your chain nose pliers and just kind of remove them manually if you need to. And everything is nice and assembled. So now you can take your bead cap, and your bead cap is great because it'll hide that little wire piece there at the end of the chain. And then you can now create your second wire wrap loop there at the top. And to do this, it's really easy. So you kind of just compress everything toward that loop that you made before so that everything is going to be nice and tight. And then you can just grasp the top part of your wire that's meeting the bead cap with your chain nose pliers, and then go ahead and give another 90-degree angle bend just as we did earlier. And once you've done that, you can then grasp it with your chain nose pliers. And remembering that I liked petite loops, I'm going to make sure I stay within that 1/4 range of my round nose pliers. And then I'm just going to wrap it around up to a certain point with my craft wire here. Once I've done that, I'm going to lift off and switch sides so that now I'm on the bottom mandrel. And then I'm going to simply finish out my loop as such. Okay, that looks really good. Once I've done that, I can then just do as before, grasp it with my chain nose pliers, and then with the assistance of my round nose pliers, I'm just going to wrap that around. I think my fingers are a little too tiny to wrap that comfortably, so I'm going to rely on my pliers to do the work for me. And you can see that my loop there is looking pretty great. So I'm just going to trim this right off, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck in that little end of my coil there. One thing I want to note is that I've been very consistent with my loops in terms of making sure that they're facing the same direction. So I want to go ahead and adjust that as we're making these components. And as I did earlier, I suppose. Now, what you can do at this point is to go back and kind of fluff up your flower a little bit if you want to, and get it to be where it kind of just, you know, looks a little bit more freeform and flowery as it is there. It looks nice and full, so that's perfect. And once you've done a few of these, you will have 3 components to work with. So here's where I'm going to cover now the materials portion of this project. I've shown you the technique on how to make those wire wrap loops. And that technique is then basically the entire project of this. So I didn't want to repeat the project or this technique too many times for you guys, right? But I did want to get to how this piece is assembled. So I went ahead and pre-wire wrapped my components together. And I'll show you the beaded tassel and the other chain bits here in a second. But when you've made those 3 knitted wire beaded components, you can then kind of expand out and branch out and find some other beads in your inventory. So this is where I mentioned having several different decorative beads. In order for this design to work as an asymmetry piece, I wanted to keep the rest of it very brass based. So I picked out beads, specifically decorative beads, that were in that brass color, and then kind of accenting and complementing it with my crystals. So you'll need a total of 3 more wire wrap loop beaded components. And each of these are a little different. This one has about a 15 to 20 millimeter bead, probably closer to 15 actually now that I'm looking at it. And then you'll see that I've got a crystal on each side. So that crystal kind of just helps to break up that pure brass color scheme while just keeping it nice and, monochromatic. So, and these crystals are each 3 millimeters in size. And I've done the same thing with this one, except I've selected a different brass color bead. This one also uses a wire wrap technique on either end. And in order for me to kind of plug up that hole, but also get a little bit of extra pop of color in there, I've used another 2 size 3 millimeter crystals in there. And then finally, this will be sort of toward my asymmetrical side. So keeping it understated and still balanced visually, I used a smaller decorative bead there. So this is about an 8 millimeter decorative bead with a 6 millimeter bicone crystal right underneath it. So take notes of everything that you have here or just watch this on replay. And we're going to be combining all of these components together. Okay, so I've got my jump rings and I've got my toggle clasp. This is going to be on the side of my design. So this is the most interesting part, I think, of this whole design of this jewelry piece. And then I've got my 18 inches of this fantastic jewelry chain. This is about 5 millimeters by 10 millimeters, give or take, links that have been attached together into this gorgeous chain. So now that I have all my components here, I could start to assemble everything together, right? So with my pattern, what I did was I combined 2 of the flower components at the bottom of my piece, and I'm just using 3 millimeter jump rings to connect everything together. These are perfect because they're about the size of my simple loops, or excuse me, of my wire wrap loops. So just maybe a hair difference, but I want it to be consistent and just to make sure that, again, everything looks like a decorative jewelry chain. And so I just decided to use smaller jump rings. Okay, so those 2 are connected. And then up here I had my really funky decorative bead there. That was also attached, so let's attach that together. Okay, the seam on these jump rings are just about perfect and really close well together. So when you're investigating your jump rings, make sure that that seam and the space between it is nice and tight. Okay, so I think I had my next beaded component there at the top, so I'm going to connect that next. And by all means, you can absolutely experiment with the layout of this design. My goal was to show you that one component and then a one way of assembling this perfect design together. Okay, that looks really great. So at this point, I can start to figure out how I want the rest of my design to look. So to be consistent with my layout here, my bicone crystal is at the bottom of my decorative bead there. So I'm going to kind of angle it the same direction as that. And then I can connect this decorative bead over here to my flower component. Okay. There we go. And now I can connect this guy together with this. I think the part that'll take you the longest is making sure that all those wire wrap loops look consistent with each other. Connecting the chain is really quite easy to do. Okay, and so now I can attach my jewelry chain, which does also have a seam in it, so I can open it up. And I'm going to attach it to my jump ring there. Close it up. Okay, and then I can attach my toggle clasp here together. So I'm going to attach my round ring to the bottom of my design and not the necklace rope itself. I guess it's part of the necklace rope, right? I think what works about this design is that, again, it's just the concentrated color, keeping it monochromatic and very focused on that brass, and then letting the white and gray beads do all the work for me at the bottom. If you have too many elements in your asymmetrical design, your eye is going to just dart everywhere, and you won't have a really successful piece that is, again, drawing your eye to the focal. Okay, that looks awesome. So now you can check to see if your toggle works, because sometimes if you put bigger beads or chain on a smaller toggle and it doesn't work, then you'll probably not have your most successful jewelry design. So this seems to work pretty well, and it's very easy to put on and take off. And so now I can sort of focus my effort here at the bottom. I had mentioned that you can find how to make this chain in the description of this video. And that's what this looks like. So here I just took head pins and some metal baubles and made additional wire wrap loops on those and then attached them to jewelry chain. And then I kind of use the same wire wrapping technique to make each of these individual crystals wire wrapped as well. So you'll just simply make a wire wrap loop and then just use the extra wire around the crystal to make this messy little wire wrapping at the top that I think kind of coordinates well with the design elements. And you'll have this really great beaded tassel put together in no time. So again, if you're looking for more specific information and instruction, you can check out the video description. Okay, so this is all attached to a 3mm jump ring, just as I've been using before. And I'm going to now open it up. And I can attach that to the bottom of my piece to have it all taper off at the end here. So I need to open up that a little bit more. Here we go. And fantastic. So once you get all of your beaded components designed and put together, you'll have this necklace done in no time. And you'll have a really fantastic tassel down here as well, and an asymmetrical design that will have your friends jealous. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this design. I have to show you what it looks like on a dress form here, or neck form. So let me put it together and show you. Look how exquisite that looks. Now again, remember when it comes to asymmetrical design, you really want to focus your eye on a certain part of the design. So in this case, because my eye is being drawn down by the white beads and colors that are happening here, I can kind of get away with using tone on tone and having my clasp design there off center and still have it look really well balanced visually. And then to complete my eye candy here, I've got this beautiful tassel at the end that I've also handmade, and you guys can absolutely do that too with your design. So I think this is a really successful piece, and I hope you will give it a try. If you are looking for more designs, you can check out, subscribe, and follow everything that's on YouTube. There I've got a giant library of designs that I've been teaching on how to make with the different types of silver silk that I carry, all the different product lines and colors that you can imagine, and bringing you guys fun, fresh ideas on stuff, crafting, jewelry design, everything you can think of. You can also, again, follow my Instagram. There is a ton of inspiration on there, and I try and keep up with the posting, the different reels and tutorials there that I post as well. So it's a great information and a great inspiration repository for you guys. Otherwise, you can check out the website, silversilkonline.com, for any of the materials that I'll be using silver silk chain, jewelry chain wise for this particular tutorial and any other tutorials that you see that you love. And again, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you guys again on the next one. And I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mwah!